Hello and welcome to the latest in the Leaders with Ambition podcast series. And today I'm absolutely delighted to welcome my guest, Claire Mason. Claire is founder and CEO of Man Bites Dog. Now, it's going to be a really interesting story today. Lots of things that Claire's going to share with us. And I think one of the things that strikes me so much about Claire is how inspirational she is. And she's a real role model to a lot of females. And this is something that has always been a passion of Claire's. And she sits on a lot of boards now, helping female entrepreneurs, which I think, again, is paying it forward, which is a hard work when you're as busy as Claire is, but it shows how important it is to her. She's a massive advocate of females and people in general, and really seeing people achieve their best possible selves. So much so that Claire actually puts a quarter of the revenue from her firm back into L&D, which she will discuss with us as part of the journey today. And I think that's a real commitment to people. She'll talk about the gender pay gap, which again highlights the difference in some of the historic ways that we've seen females paid. And I think something that Man Bites Dog has done a really good job with of really highlighting and pushing this forward. And one of the things I love about what Claire has done with Man Bites Dog when she set up the company, I think about 18 years ago, was that sustainability was at the forefront of her mind, even back then, and community. So even before ESG was a term, Claire was ahead of the game. She set up the company in Brighton so that she could take advantage of that. And that's something that, again, is a passion that shines through, and she's continuing to this day. So without further ado, Claire, over to you to bring your career to life for us.
Thanks, Nikki. That was such a wonderful introduction. I'm really grateful. Thank you. So you asked me where I grew up. I'm actually, as you can probably tell from the odd flat vowel in my accent, I'm from the Northwest mainly. And I grew up in Cheshire with my mum and dad and my brother and sister, the twins, who are about 4.5 years younger than me. And it was a very happy, very energetic and very entrepreneurial household, actually. We had quite some adventures as teenagers. My brother desperately wanted a mountain bike for Christmas. And so my dad then thought, well, what's he going to do with this mountain bike if I don't take him out on it? So my dad got one as well. And that was kind of the start of an entrepreneurial journey for all of us, because my dad wrote the first book of mountain bike trails about the Peak District, because there weren't any official mountain biking trails back then. And he wrote this book, and then me and my little sister had the job of marketing this book. So while my dad and my brother were having a great time on their mountain bikes, mapping out new trails, my sister and I were like the child labour behind it, and we send out mail shots to all of the sort of WH Smith and country bookstores across the region and follow it up. And because we were children, we were absolutely fearless at playing them off against each other, and they didn't have central procurement in those days. Yeah. So we ended up selling thousands of copies of my dad's book, like more than we had in the warehouse. And off the back of that, we all went on this incredible family trip to Los Angeles, to Disneyland, which was just incredible.
And that was, I think you were 12, 13 at the time. So I think, Claire, I mean, gosh, you've got this entrepreneurial spirit right in you from a very young age, haven't you?
Absolutely. And it was really exciting. And then also gave my dad real confidence to start his own business, which he then subsequently built a telecommunications consultancy called Mason Communications, which may have something to do with the fact that my company has a more interesting name than that.
Don't tell you
that.
So when you were growing up, then I know that you've always had this passion and love of books and literature, haven't you? And it goes way back, and books were a big part of the family life. Never mind that you wrote a book, or your dad wrote a book and you managed to publish it. And when you were at school, did you work hard? Did it come naturally to you?
Yeah, I think my mum loves books, and I think I really get that from her. And I absolutely just love reading, and was always a voracious reader, and always reading many, many years ahead of supposed reading age. And right. So that was a really big part of my life. And also all of those Victorian and older novels, they're all about women succeeding through the power of their pen and things like that. So I think there was almost a real connection between that kind of ambition and also the reading side of things. And I was really, really lucky that I had some incredible English teachers, including Mrs. Newton, who was incredible. And through that, they suggested I should apply to Oxford, which was something I hadn't even thought I could go to university, let alone apply for Oxford. And I ended up being the first person from my school to ever go to Oxford or Cambridge, which was really super exciting.
Yeah. And again, you think early on role modeling behavior. So I'm sure that many people have come up under you. Once one person can do it, people realize that it's something that anyone can achieve, which is fantastic. And I know you went to Oxford, as you say, and it was a really important part of your life, wasn't it? It really helped shape your stamina for work and the way that you were able to commit yourself.
I think I was really lucky in that I found some really good friends at Oxford, and as an experience, it was incredible. And to be able to argue, several times a week with the world expert in your subject just prepares you for everything in life, I think, and really teaches you that resilience, that you can have a stack of books that goes from the floor to the ceiling and you can get through it, and you can just work really, really hard. And that will then translate into success. And I think that was a really important lesson from that time.
And you thought you may go down an academia route, didn't you? And then went on to study for a master's as well.
Yeah, I was originally, my intention was to become a sort of mad professor, I think. And I did an MA in the literature of the Romantic period, so Keats and Shelley and the poetry of that time, which was wonderful. Just to make myself look really employable, to add a romanticism degree to my English degree.
So true.
But then I really started to think about, me as a personality, and I love making things and creating things. And as an academic, I felt like I was constantly deconstructing things when actually I wanted to create something. So I started to think about actually what alternative careers might there be. And I really was very interested in politics and very interested in journalism. And I had this fantastic chance meeting with a woman who sat opposite me on a train. And being Northern, I chat to everyone, So I got to chat to this wonderful lady, and she had a Guardian pen. And so I started thinking, well, I just thought I'd ask her, are you just a crossword fan, or do you actually work for The Guardian? And it turned out she was the PA to the Northern editor of The Guardian up in Manchester. And I managed to wangle myself an internship at The Guardian, which was, again, just super exciting.
Amazing, I love that. A chance meeting on a train takes you to your internship to start off your career.
Absolutely. You've got to ask people for opportunities, haven't you? Completely. So that was super exciting. And I did all sorts of things, like I interviewed John Prescott at the opening of the Hull Regional Assembly. And it was really, really exciting. But having spent some time at The Guardian, what I noticed very quickly was that I had this vision that journalists made the news and really set the news agenda. But actually, I was seeing how much of it came through on the news wires from PA, from Reuters, and how much came out of I'll age myself now, the fax machine from PR companies. And that made me really want to be on the other side of that fax machine. Rather than reporting what came out of the fax machine, I wanted to be on the other side, feeding and creating that news agenda, which really led me to want to move into communications, PR, and marketing.
And so when you made that decision, how did you go about finding yourself the right opportunity? Because you managed to get this internship from this really amazing conversation on a train. What was your next step then to find the right place for you?
So I think I sort of applied to absolutely everything I could find that was a really interesting PR job, but there was one that I just desperately wanted. And my friend Ollie came over the night before and taught me how to write a press release. My friend Shelton was like, you have to visualize yourself working for this company, be confident, just imagine you're already there. And I went in, I remember stepping into this incredible blue glass lift they had and up to the top floor for my interview. And I got this incredible job, which I was so not qualified for.
That visualization work then, Claire.
Absolutely. I think they couldn't get rid of me. So I got the job as their sort of international network manager, reporting to their European chairman. And he was an extraordinary guy. And I got to work with all the global managing directors of the agency and also their creative director in the US. And I was building their international website. I was coordinating their international pitches and then getting increasingly involved in that work. And then I had the opportunity to work on a fantastic campaign. And again, this will age me on. It was a Deloitte consulting campaign looking at whether or not the UK should go into the euro.
Wow.
Which was
really a big campaign. Though.
It was a huge campaign.
Think about how much
really
experience.
Successful.
Yeah, think about how much experience you've got by then. It's not a huge amount. You're still learning, and you're given something so important.
And I was slightly terrified of my boss, so I did such an incredible job on that then I was headhunted by a woman-owned business, and that then created a kind of a new pattern in my life, which was kind of moving between very large global businesses working on the very big global work, and then working for smaller women-owned businesses, really learning the ropes of how to be an entrepreneur and how to run a business. And so, some of those women were incredibly inspiring to me as well.
I think I do love that about you. You are, as you say, you surrounded yourself with your literature, with your strong female writers when you were younger, and you're starting to see this come through in your career as well. And I know that was again a big step up for you in thinking about what you wanted to do and why. So you were successful, very successful, and ran some huge campaigns, didn't you, at the early stage of your career? When did you start to pivot and think, this, I've got the confidence and the need and the want to generate my own firm and the values that you wanted to be at the centre of your firm? What was it that took you onto that stage?
So I think there were a couple of really key moments. Again, one was a conversation on a train. I met this fantastic girl, Anna, on a train. We became good friends, and she was really fascinated by the fact that I would work for these very complex, big global companies and be able to get my head into something really quickly and become an expert really quickly. And she was trying to commission a book on religious cults for children, which is kind of a hugely difficult brief. Very niche, very specialist, and also trying to balance that line between not being sued by a litigious religious movement, but also not encouraging children to perhaps join a movement that might not be in their best interest. So it was a really difficult book to do. So she said, look, Claire, I've tried everyone. I really think you can do it. So I thought, okay, let's do it. So again, I wrote this book on new religious movements for kids, which is kind of crazy. And what I was really proud of was that, again, I found the world expert in the subject to be my editor so that it would have the credibility of his name on it. And he didn't change a comma or a word. And wow. So I was really proud, and that gave me huge confidence. And I think having that little side hustle alongside my job, obviously with my boss's permission, just really gave me the confidence that actually I did know how to run a business. I could manage, just all the technical side of, bank accounts and VAT and all of the, all the things you've got to think about. So I felt like from that running a business perspective, I was now ready. And then in my career, I was 29, I was running the biggest global accounts available to me. I was running Capgemini, I was running Microsoft. And I thought, really it's now or never. So I saw an opportunity in this growing knowledge economy. And I had this vision of building what I call intelligent brands. So businesses built on knowledge and expertise that need to sell to the C-suite, that need to sell to board level decision makers. And I had this idea that they would need to sell in a very different way. They'd need to demonstrate smart thinking. And so what I started to create in my mind was effectively the world's first dedicated thought leadership consultancy back in 2005. So it was just a really exciting time. And I had this very clear vision of what I wanted to do. And I remember trying to name this consultancy. I think I lay on a sunbed for about a week on holiday, going through the dictionary, trying to find something I could trademark or buy the .com for. And then it just came to me in a flash. Man Bites Dog, because Man Bites Dog is the definition of news. It's the definition of a story. It's the definition of a big idea that travels. So this kind of narrative that motivates action was what I wanted to create. And of course, Man Bites Dog, MBD, also stands for marketing and business development. And I wanted to create a truly integrated consultancy that could help businesses help businesses build an intelligent brand by coming up with a big idea that you could pull through communications and earned media, something people would really want to talk about, marketing and business development. So pulling it all the way through from thought to market, from idea to sale. And that's what I set about doing in creating Man Bites Dog.
Amazing. And, as you say, I think the name's incredibly clever anyway. The fact that it's marketing, business development, again, another level. But I think it's interesting, isn't it? I know you were aiming at C-suite, and you had worked with very senior people, as you say, from a very early part of your career. Was there any stage that you weren't confident that was going to work? And, did you have any imposter syndrome around the time, or were you just so focused on your vision that you wanted to make it a success?
I knew there was a need for this kind of work, and I was very confident I could do it really well. The main issue was persuading people to believe me. And, being a 30-year-old woman wanting to work with world's biggest global business brands, I remember I used to hide in a black trouser suit. Like these days, you'll find me being much more myself in a red dress. But I remember having to feel really suited and booted and really be really fearless in knocking on those big doors. So that was a really scary time. And I remember my husband saying to me, well, look, the worst case scenario is you're just going to have to get another job. So just get on with it. And that really took fear away. It was such great advice, because it's like, well, what's the worst that can happen? So I really wanted to just go for it and build. And then I was really fortunate in actually, again, female business leaders believing in me. Korn Ferry was one of our founding clients, and we still do huge global thought leadership campaigns for them 18 years on. And they really believed that we had the niche expertise to really deliver what they wanted. We also did a great campaign with Gensler, the architecture firm, and with Alessandra Almeida Jones, who is a key expert on thought leadership that many of your listeners will know very well. And she really believed in me and really pushed me to really go for it, because she wanted to work with me and she wasn't going to wait forever. So that really helped tip me over the cliff. And again, my friend Shelton, who was all about the visualization in the first job, he would call me every day and ask if I'd resigned from my job yet to start the business. So
I love that.
It was fantastic. And then he became a client as well. So I think all of these people that are willing to take a chance on you in those early days, and then you build this amazing work because of your passion. So with the Gensler piece we did with Alessandra, that campaign still runs every year. And we were the first people to ever prove the link between office design and productivity. And so it was a hugely important piece that's still taught on university degree courses now. So I think from these small businesses comes this innovation, and it comes from that passion.
But how exciting, again, like you say, you've done a piece of work like this and it's still talked about. This was 18 years ago, it's still talked about today. I just think that's absolutely phenomenal. And, I think when you set up the company, you took on an intern and you had somebody doing some work with you. But I think you mentioned to me, which I love, you knew it was going to work from day one, didn't you?
Pretty much day one. So I had an intern working for me, and I had exactly enough money saved up to pay her for a 1-year contract. And I was really straight about that this is going to be chaotic. It's going to be quite a journey, and I might not be able to employ you after a year, but let's go for it. And Ruth was totally up for that. And then I had a former colleague from years back wanted to work with me. And I said, I cannot possibly afford you, but it would be my ambition to employ you soon. And he did a bit of freelancing for me. And within 3 months, I was able to employ him on a full-time contract. And I was able to upgrade Ruth's contract to full-time permanent contract as well, which was so exciting. But yeah, I was so lucky because it worked from day one. We won business from day one. The business was delivered really well. We won lots of awards for the business that we did, and that really helped us grow through word of mouth. Because I think when you're working with a new business, your big concern is, quality, and the fact that we show them this amazing work just really helped people believe and buy into it. And we grew really quickly through a lot of hard work.
Exactly. It's funny how much hard work goes into luck as well.
Absolutely.
And I think, was it in year 2 that you won the Consultancy of the Year award? I mean, that's unbelievable again, isn't it? A new consultancy winning something that is so well known in the industry. And again, you mentioned you've won, I think you've won over 100 awards as a firm now. Did each one feel the same as that first one? How does it feel?
I think that one was just so incredibly special. It was like an endorsement by the whole industry of the quality of what we were doing and the energy we were bringing to it, and the fact that we were doing something really new and really different. So I don't think anything will ever come close to that night of being a 2-year-old business and winning that Consultancy of the Year award was just incredible for all of us.
Phenomenal. It's great, well deserved. And you, I know that something that the core of your business is values, and it's something that you strongly believe in. And also this leads in, I think, really nicely with the L&D piece as well. So what is it that makes you so committed to ensuring the L&D piece for your firm?
So I think the culture piece is the most important part of what we do. And I think when you're working with a lot of really intelligent people, I think we've all been there in our careers where sometimes you have to choose between the best possible work for the biggest possible brand versus the sort of culture that you want to be in.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to create somewhere where you didn't have to choose, where you could be in a really supportive culture, but that you would be working with the biggest and the best business brands, and you would be doing the best possible global work. And that's what I set out to create. And what I really wanted then was that virtuous circle of that culture enabling us to attract the best people, which would enable us to attract the best work. And you have that brilliant virtuous circle then of being really ambitious and really achieving and innovating, built on a supportive culture. Because I think ultimately you can achieve a lot more if you help each other rather than tread on each other. And I think too often in professional services, there can be that horrible negative political aspect of the culture. And nobody wants that. That's not where humans thrive. So the culture was really important. And probably the hardest part of that is that piece of never tolerating a brilliant jerk, because actually they're not that brilliant if their personal impact on everyone else is so damaging. So that's something that you really have to work hard to stay true to, I think. And I'm incredibly proud of the team and the culture and how they support and nurture each other. And then the L&D piece has always been very important because the nature of the work we do is so complex, and we're always trying to achieve world firsts. So, for example, we were the first people to predict the global talent crunch that we've now been in for some time. And that kind of innovation doesn't come without that investment in L&D and people always being at the cutting edge of what they're doing. But I think lockdown actually really helped us with that, because we had to become a lot more intentional about learning, which I think many people found that you're not just going to learn by osmosis. And so we've introduced the Man Bites Dog Academy, which is all about investing in people's learning and development, and also some really fun but really important initiatives. Like we have a thing called Thinking Thursdays, where every single Thursday at 11 o'clock, we will have either an internal or an external speaker who will spend between half an hour and an hour educating the whole team about something really interesting. So, for example, my colleague Danielle yesterday was looking at some new aspects of macroeconomics and taking us all through that, which was really interesting. And I think everyone just really enjoys learning from each other. And I think also teaching is a really good way of embedding learning. So we do invest a huge amount of time and revenue in L&D to make sure that our people are moving up, because I think also people need very clear career paths.
Yeah,
I think especially women who don't ask for promotion potentially as frequently as men, to have line management structure where you're assessed every 6 months, you know what your clear career path is, and you know what L&D you need to get you there, I think is really important. And on the back of that, our people tend to be promoted, within 12 months from position to position, which I think is great to have that clarity. And it's really motivating for clever people, I think, to be able to get on and see what their next step is.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing. I think, as you say, the investment into L&D is what sets you apart as well, doesn't it? Because you've got some amazing people that work for you. And I know that, you've got they've all got a strong network as well, because people do want to work with good people, don't they? It goes without saying. And if you've got a group of very intelligent people, they're going to want to keep developing. And I love the idea of Thinking Thursdays. I'm definitely going to pinch that. So I hope you don't mind.
No, please do.
And what about, I know that when you turned 18, it must have been a really good reflection point for you, because you do work with some of these amazing brands, and you work in, I think it's over 20 countries geographically as well. How does that feel when you're looking back going, oh yeah, I was sat in my friends encouraging me to start my business, and then now here I am.
Yeah, it really was a pinch yourself moment to be 18. Actually, it really, legal thinking age at last. But just to see how far we'd come and the sorts of clients that we're working with and the sorts of campaigns is just incredible. And looking at the people, many of our people have worked with business for like more than 6 years. So seeing that whole trajectory of their growth, many of our leadership team have grown up through the business. So looking at all of them and how much they've developed makes me really proud, and the work that we've done and the difference that we've made with some of our campaigns around sustainability and diversity as well, I think really makes me feel, really proud.
Yeah. And that's an interesting sidestep into the gender say gap. So I know, again, this is a report that you do that's taken in the industry. People talk about it. It's a term people talk about now, which I love. So what was behind that for you? And what was your longer term objective?
So the gender say gap is really important to all of us here. We've been really successful in making sure that our management team reflects the diversity of our sort of workforce. And something we're really good at is building senior female leaders. So something we really care about. And what we noticed through the course of our work was that female executives would help us, in our clients, would do so much work on these big thought leadership campaigns, on all the research and thinking behind them. And they would give us endless time outside their core working hours to help us do brilliant campaigns. But when it came to fronting the campaign, being the spokesperson, being the media person, doing the public speaking, the women would somehow suddenly vanish and become too busy. And we really wanted to encourage them to step forward and show them how important it was. And we also wanted our clients in the broader industry to start considering the diversity of the people that represent them, because they're the role models. That, you should be putting forward the people that not only represent your workforce and your customers, but that represent the workforce that you want to have in the future. So we coined this term, the gender say gap with an S. Which is all about the underrepresentation of women and diverse groups in business and in public life. And what we wanted to do is really start a campaign to get people to start monitoring the representation of their spokespeople and their speakers, to really think again about how they can train a generation of diverse business leaders to really be the front people for their campaigns. So we've done a lot of research on the gender say gap and how prevalent it is. And then last year we partnered with Women in Journalism to also look at the gender news gap and the representation of women in the news, and also the challenges that female journalists and editors face in actually making it to the top as well. And we identified this idea of the glass newsroom, which is really still holding women back from our most important editorial positions, whether it's, the business, finance, politics, tends to be quite male dominated. And we were looking at some of the issues that women face in crossing that. So really what I'd love to ask people to do is just to really think about the diversity of their spokespeople, whether it's in the media or in public speaking opportunities, or even in graduate careers fairs. Who are you putting forward? Are there more diverse people you can put forward? And if not, why not? And can you train the next generation up? Because it will be career enhancing for them to be those diverse ambassadors for your organisation. And I'd also say, if you are, everyone should be stepping forward as spokespeople. I think it's not necessarily that comfortable for anyone. I think there's a bit of a perception that men find it easier than women. I don't think that's true. I think men are just willing to put in the hours and face down that sort of that confidence issue. And I think more women need to do that. And I was actually dared by one of my clients to say, well, actually, if you want me to front this, why don't you front anything? And I actually, I did a speaker course with Ginger Public Speaking, which I'd highly recommend, to try and get me over my own fear of speaking in public and being a front person as well. And I said yes to every public speaking opportunity for a whole year, which was incredible.
That's commitment.
It got me into so many scrapes. I got paid by the Finnish government to do a rap at a feminist swearing night, just crazy things like that, because I had to say yes to everything. But I also got to speak in the House of Parliament. So, I think it's really worthwhile and really career enhancing for more female and diverse business leaders to step forward and be a role model for the next generation. And it's fun. I recommend it.
I love what you're saying there about saying to people, who have you actually got at these sessions, whether it's if you're doing some kind of speaking event or whatever, and how easy it is to get a more diverse speaker out there to represent the company. I love that idea. And also, I love the idea of saying yes for a year to anything to see what happens and where it takes you. That's fantastic. Are you still doing lots of speaking as well now then, Claire? Because I know that you're very much out meeting clients constantly, aren't you? And the thought leadership is still very much at the heart of what you personally do, isn't it, with your clients?
Yes, absolutely. I still do a lot of public speaking. I love doing workshops on thought leadership and really spreading the word about what thought leadership can do and what's next. And also I speak a lot on sustainability and ESG issues. And really my mission now is to really cascade this right across the team. So many of my team members are also doing a lot of public speaking, including one of our team who is under 30, who opened Climate Week some time ago, which is amazing. So I'm really proud of the team and their bravery for stepping forward, because it isn't easy and it isn't comfortable, but you kind of just got to get on with it, really. So
that's great.
And I, again, really value all the sessions that we do together with Ambition as well for the marketing forum that we do together. It's always really good fun to do those workshops.
And lots of people get a lot from it, Claire, I can tell you. So talking about the ESG that you just mentioned there as well, I think it's really fascinating for me that you made this decision 18 years ago to really put community and sustainability at the heart of your business. And you look at where ESG is now, and I know that you are actually a speaker at a lot of events, particularly around ESG, which is a hot topic at the moment, isn't it? But you've been doing it for a long time. Why was that? What was it about you that you thought this really matters to me?
So I've always been really interested in the environment and sustainability, and I've lived in Brighton since the millennium. And obviously, we are a sustainable city. We have a green MP. It's very core to the value set here. And when I set up the business, I deliberately set it up in Brighton, not in London, because I wanted to create meaningful work in Brighton. I don't want Brighton to become a commuter town, that sort of empty, uncreative commuter town. I wanted to create those high skilled, highly meaningful jobs in Brighton, and to bring those Brighton values to the culture in terms of that collegiate nature, the teamwork, but also the caring about community and sustainability. So when we first started, we would invest in various offsetting schemes and also sort of land regeneration schemes. And then as we've grown, it's become much more part of our business. So we initially sought out a lot of sustainability related businesses, but over time it's become much more core to our business because clients have wanted to do it. So for example, we invented the Sustainable Cities Index for Arcadis, which we run every year, back in 2014. So really pioneering that agenda for business leaders and government leaders and politicians across the world. And really, I feel like the world has almost caught up a lot with the values that Man Like Stock has always had. And we've been able to really grow our business on the back of that. So now we're very much focused on building sustainable business brands in its broadest sense. So business brands that are relevant to the next economy, this economy it's going to be greener, it's going to be smarter, it's going to be more inclusive, it's going to be fairer. And so helping businesses embrace that and find the growth opportunities in that agenda is really core to what we're doing. So we're doing some really interesting campaigns on things like energy transition or financing net zero, or we've just done a really interesting campaign with Intel globally called the Sustainable CTO, which is looking at the role of technology leaders as being that pivotal driver of sustainable transformation through digitization. So really, really interesting clients, interesting areas, and clients that can really make a big difference globally in the way they can enable the whole world to be more sustainable.
That's so interesting, isn't it? And great for you to be at the centre of that as well with your passion as it drives through. So I know that you sit on lots of boards and you are very supportive of female leaders and paying it forward. How do you have the time for that, Claire? Because you're a very busy woman, aren't you? And why is it so important that you do pay it forward?
I would really recommend everyone to get a board position as early in their lives as they can. I think it's fascinating and you learn so much about leadership from that, and also that kind of healthy debate and disagreement and then coming back together again. I sit on a lot of economic development boards. I'm really passionate about sustainable development and community regeneration. So I sit on the Coast Capital Local Enterprise Partnership Board, for example. And I really believe in the model which is sadly coming to an end in April, but that model of bringing business leaders together with community leaders and public sector to really determine what's going to help economically grow our region in a sustainable way. I think they've achieved an awful lot. And something I'm really particularly passionate about is entrepreneurship. So I'm proud to be entrepreneur in residence at the British Library Business and IP Centre. And what many people don't realise is that there's a fantastic network of free business support in many, many libraries right across the country. So if you're thinking of starting a side hustle or a business, I highly recommend the business and IP centres in our library network. And what's great about them is that makes entrepreneurship so accessible. It's the best way of reaching women, for example. It's the best way of reaching hard to reach groups from socially deprived backgrounds, or many more people from diverse backgrounds as well. So it's again a really good investment of time, I think, to really help pay it forward and help that next generation of entrepreneurs come through, because they're the people that are going to shape whatever this next economy looks like and make sure it is sustainable and inclusive. And it's really exciting helping entrepreneurs realise their vision, I think.
I think it's amazing that I didn't know about the library until you and I started speaking about it. And as you say, you think about the accessibility of it and how important it is to reach groups, underrepresented groups that you see day to day in the business world. I think that is such a takeaway for anybody listening to the podcast today. And what would you say then are the biggest challenges at the moment in professional services firms for the leaders? What are the biggest challenges?
I think the economic outlook is quite challenging for professional services leaders at the moment. And I think having some kind and sort of geopolitical tensions that we face as well. So they're having to deal with quite a lot in terms of how they orient their business to that new economy and the new ESG opportunities. They're having to process the sort of opportunity that AI presents, but also potentially some of the downsides. And I think potentially some of them are being quite slow to seize the opportunities in that new economy and to develop the business growth propositions that they could be putting forward. And I think part of that is because they feel the need to get their own house in order before they help clients. Yeah. And I think it really needs to be more of a concurrent journey. I think it's also a case of, waiting for that growth to come back into the market and thinking about when that's going to be. It's quite interesting. We've almost got a sort of hidden recession in some pockets of the market, I think, which is quite interesting. So I think everyone's having to look a bit more globally for growth.
I think that's a really good point. And your Man Bites Dogs, I know, is doing more global work as well, even though you're already in 20 countries. That's some of the work that you guys are doing at the moment, isn't it? Is about how to take that next step forward for Man Bites Dog as well. Yeah,
we have huge ambitions to really grow our presence in the US. So most of our work tends to cover about 20 countries, sometimes more. And many of our clients are US headquartered clients. So that's a real growth opportunity for us that we're really focusing on at the moment as well, but also our expansion across the sectors. So we have real depth, as you know, in professional services. But over the years, we've really built out that knowledge around building intelligent brands, working with many leading technology firms, lots of sustainable finance teams in commercial banks, lots of investment management companies, and also the engineering companies and the infrastructure companies that are going to build that sustainable infrastructure. So it's kind of partly about going broader in our sectors and partly about really expanding that sort of geographical impact as well.
Yeah, really interesting. Interesting times ahead for you. So what would you say have been your highlights to date? Because even just hearing you talk now, there's so many. And what are your personal highlights?
I think that sort of we won Specialist Consultancy of the Year last year, and that felt like a huge coming together of all of the great work that our leaders in the team and our team have done. To be recognised by our peers as that Consultancy of the Year was fantastic. And the fact that we've kind of really pioneered this piece of pulling that idea and that thought leadership through from comms to marketing to business development. So that I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of our campaigns. So things like the Sustainable Cities Index, they're really frequent campaigns. They're really making a difference and they're helping our clients make a difference on the ground, which is great. Really proud of the team and watching them grow as well. So I think really many highlights along the years, and yeah, really looking forward now to our 20th and where we go from there.
Yeah, long to go, 20th birthday. And what have been your biggest challenges? Because I know it's interesting, whenever I talk to you, Claire, you're always one of the most positive people, and you've always got so many different ideas. So I imagine that your challenges are always turned into opportunities. But what would you class as being your challenges?
I think the biggest challenges have been the economic shocks. So we started the business in 2005. So Man Bites Dog's been through the global financial crisis. It's been through the pandemic. And when those things happen, you get all these people giving you advice and telling you what you should do. And I think it's really important to kind of resist that and go from the heart and have an abundant mentality, because we saw a lot of our competitors make a lot of cuts, and we've never done that. We've always retained, grown and invested in the team. And I think that's been incredibly important. And that really, we were rewarded for that with so much loyalty and such a strong culture, and our determination to succeed no matter what has meant that when we hit a crisis, those are actually the years where we see the biggest spike in our growth, because I think it gives us that courage to really knock on the big doors of the companies we really want to work for, because the alternative isn't worth thinking about, is it? So you're kind of like really willing to go and work with really big companies. You're willing to stick your neck out and say, I really want to work with you, and this is why. And so I think that kind of really going for it when times are tough is really important, and knowing that actually there is always growth on the table. You've just got to find it, and you've got to adapt and pivot. And the most important thing through that is the team and how they look after each other. So I think probably that has been the biggest challenge, is those economic shocks. But actually from that comes a huge amount of innovation. That the work the team did during lockdown, we did Zeronomics for a major banking client, which was all about the economics of how you get to net zero. And that was just a hugely successful campaign, won lots of awards. The learning and development team did during that period, and all the innovations we came up with, like, for example, we still do now. So Wellness Wednesdays, we always start late on a Wednesday. So it was to make sure people left their houses and got exercise and went out in daylight. And that's still really loved by the team, because they can go and take the dog for a walk, or some of the team went bouldering a few weeks ago, or go in the sea. It's fabulous. So I think finding the opportunities when times get tough is really key.
But again, that's you investing in your people again, isn't it? And as you say, you know, that sense of loyalty that you get as well is you know, one of the biggest things that makes a company a success, because you do need longevity of people and you need bright people, but you also need to keep training and developing those people. Otherwise, they're going to look for it elsewhere. And I know that one of the things I think you've always said to me is about this feeling of just being open and asking people for help, which I think is quite hard for people to do. But, you know, it actually pays back so much, doesn't it? And you can then pay it forward yourself. So where did you learn to do that? What was it? Was it going back to you being on the train with the lady with the Guardian pen, or how did that start?
I think it's just something that, because I guess it's my northernness. I love meeting new people and talking to them, finding out about them, and just being a little bit cheeky and a little bit bold. Maybe it goes back to those days of flogging mountain biking books. But I would always ask the question, because what's the worst that can happen? Someone can say no, and that's fine. But I think it's really important to ask. And when I started the business, I used to have a Post-it note on my computer, and it was that lyric from the Smiths song Ask, which was, shyness is nice, but shyness can stop you. And it was like, you've got to force yourself past the shyness to ask the question.
Yeah.
And you might get rebuffed, but if you don't ask, you won't get anywhere. And, you know, I've asked people to be my mentor before, or I've asked, you know, for many things, and people can say no, and that's fine. But if you don't ask, you're never going to get there in the first place. I think that's really important, and just getting on with it as well. My husband, he's a musician, and he was signed to a record company, and the boss there was just such an inspirational guy. And I remember just complaining once about, I really want to do this, but no one's going to give me the job to do this. And he said, just do it. Just start doing it. Just, you know, no one gives you a badge that says you're now a writer, you know, just write. And he was absolutely right. So I think there's an element of, you know, ask people for things. They can only say no, and JFDI a little bit as well.
That's great. That is great advice, though. Just do it. Yeah. Was there anything else that you would recommend for people that are looking to develop their careers, or maybe even to Claire back in the day when she was starting to sell her dad and brother's book? You know, what advice would you give to future generations?
I think make sure you've got a really clear career path. Make sure you've got a good line manager and you know what that track might look like for you. Do the thing you're really good at, because if you're good at it, you know, the thing you love, if you're doing the thing you love, you'll be really good at it. And I think try to face the fear and do it anyway, because it's usually the things that you're frightened of that are the things that are going to be the biggest accelerators to what you need to do. I think there's also a huge piece around choosing your tribe as well, and the people that you surround yourself with. I am so lucky. I have the most incredible managing director, and we are like the yin and yang of the business. And I love working with her. She's just incredible and so smart and so challenging, which really makes me want to be better every day, which is brilliant. And my senior leadership team are fantastic people, and they're all quite different from each other, but they all have very, very strong values. And I really feel like surrounding yourself with the right tribe, with the right people who are going to challenge you and give you different perspectives is really, really important as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And you know, you have a very strong female team, but again, there's diversity in that, isn't there? Which again is so important when you're trying to create a firm that is as Man Bite Dog is. You know, you've got some amazing people there, and you've got some amazing clients, and you do some amazing work. So this doesn't just happen by osmosis, does it? There's a reason I do.
I think it's all about the people, isn't it? I think everything comes back to the people. If you've got the best people, then you can build the best business and do the best work, and then you've got that lovely virtuous circle coming together.
Yeah, I love that.
And being a well-run business as well. I think this is something that often comes up in the Managing Partners Forum, is making sure that as a business you really value the operational team in your business that might not necessarily be fee earners. I think you cannot have happy fee earners that are doing an amazing job without incredibly slick operations and a really well-run firm and a really good culture. All those things matter.
And I think something you and I talked about as well is this whole purpose of, you know, of connecting with people, and, you know, networking puts the fear of God in people sometimes, doesn't it? When you talk about networking, people are like, oh my gosh, I've got to go just stand in a room and by myself and talk to people. But it's about making connections all the time. And then how do you really develop and encourage those connections? And I think that's something you do really well. And also that connecting of people, which is quite...
I love meeting new people. I think I think because my parents moved around a lot when I was little, so I was always new girl in school, and it's just one of my favorite things is to meet a whole load of new people. And I love learning about people's different careers and what they do. And I love the most, you know, if someone's an underwriter, I'm so interested in, you know, risk and that side of things. And I'm really lucky because many of our clients are, you know, leaders in their field, the world expert, and it can be an incredibly geeky subject, from, you know, litigation to space travel to, you know, you name it.
To go off in all different directions, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I think networking, it's almost like I'd just love to ban the term networking, because it's not about that, is it? It's about meeting people and having a conversation and finding out something new and different. And then also I love connecting people that might be able to help each other or that might find each other interesting to talk to. And I think that creates really strong communities.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's around that community element again, which I know is something that is a passion of yours. And be brave. I think that's one of the terms that I've heard you use a number of times. You know, be brave and get out there and talk to people. So be curious and be brave.
I think being brave is so important. It is that thing of, I think we can always do the washing up kind of to put off the thing we really want to do. Or if you want to work with a company, you go for not the one you really want to work for, but the next one down. You should always go for the one that you're really, really passionate about. And I think, we've had lots of really exciting client wins recently, and it's because we've all chosen our passion list and reached out to people and gone, we'd love to work with you, and this is why. And clients they know what's genuine, they know, who the team want to work with and why. And I think that's really powerful.
That's really great advice. So Claire, I have to say thank you so much for your time today. I found the conversation really fascinating. I love the fact of you just talking to random people on trades and how that's had such a big impact in your life. I think
maybe that's my takeout. Talk to random people on trades.
It's definitely a takeout. And also I think, that the real thought leadership piece that I know that Man Bites Dog is so passionate about. And the fact that ESG and ED&I is at the core of everything you do, and you want to make sure that the learning and development piece impacts your people, but also the clients that you work with as well. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It's been great. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Lovely.